Hello everyone, welcome to Bio World. In previous lecture we have gained basic information about bryophytes. Now today we'll discuss about reproduction of bryophytes and main terms. Now bryophytes, they mainly reproduce by asexual as well as sexual type. Asexual reproduction, which is observed by fragmentation, as we know that some fragments occurs, that some part separates and it forms new plant body. Then special type of asexual reproduction, that is gamete. Here that cup-like structure occurs, specially observed in liverworts, and these gamete cups form birds which is known as a gamete, and when it detaches from the parent body it forms new plant. Then regeneration, same, that separated part forms new plant, that is known as a regeneration. In some like rickettsia plant, that adventitious branches arise, and when separate from the parent it forms new one. And protonema, from spore, that creeping part arise, cell divides and forms protonema. So these are some basic common methods of asexual reproduction. Now let's see about sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction, which is of oogamous type, that means you can understand male gamete and female gamete are formed. Most important, male sex organs, they are known as a antheridia, and most important, remember that female sex organ are known as a archegonia. So most important, that male sex organs are known as a antheridia and female sex organs are known as a archegonia. And here that sex organs are jacketed and multi-layered, मतलब कि जो भी सेक्स ऑर्गन है उनके सराउंडिंग में एक जैकेट होता है जो उसका प्रोटेक्शन करता है. सो दिस इज बिल्कुल बोलो कि बेसिक फंडा क्लियर होना चाहिए कि भाई एसेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन कैसे होता है और सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन कैसे होता है. नाउ लेट्स सी सम टर्म्स रिलेटेड टू दिस ब्रायोफाइट्स. सो इन ब्रायोफाइट्स, whenever we talk about gametophytic phase, so remember that gametophytic phase, which is always haploid, because gametes are always haploid. So gametophytes, they are haploid plant body and that produce gametes, and gametes, as I have discussed, it is always haploid. So gametophytes means haploid plant body. Now antheridium. So antheridium, it is male sex organ and always it is multicellular. So antheridium is male sex organ. Okay. Now anthrazoids. So the motile male gametes, they are known as the anthrazoids. Motile male gametes are called as the anthrozoid. Now next, archegonium. The female sex organs are called as a archegonium. It is always flask shape and always it produces single egg. This is most important. The female sex organ is known as a archegonium and it is flask shape and it produces single egg. Now same, just like gametophytic phase, which is haploid phase. So sporophyte, which is diploid plant body. Most important, remember, gametophytic is haploid plant body and sporophyte, it is diploid plant body. Sporophyte, that produce spores, and from these spores again gametophyte arise. But whenever we talk about bryophytes, here in bryophytes, that sporophyte depends on photosynthetic gametophyte. Remember, this is only for bryophytes. Baki in remaining pterido, gymno, there the sporophytic phase is main and gametophytic is dependent. But remember, only in bryophyte that gametophytic phase is main photosynthetic and sporophyte depends on that gametophytes. Now in liver, that gamete is formed. Through gamete, that asexual reproduction occurs. So gamete, they are green multicellular asexual bud which develops in small receptacles called gamma, a बाउल लाइक स्ट्रक्चर गैमा कप्स, उसमें ये गैमे प्रोड्यूस होते हैं, राइट. एंड व्हेन इट डिटैच फ्रॉम द पेरेंट एक्ट एज अ न्यू on germination, act as a new plant. And protonema in moss will see a thread like chain of cell arise. जैसे ये स्पोर है उसमें से ऐसी पूरी चेन बनती है, right? And this is known as a protonema. So these are basic words which are helpful to you in Bryophytes. Okay, hope so. ये समझ में आया होगा पक्का. एंथ्रीडियम, आर्कीगोनियम, स्पोरोफाइट, राइट. ओके, चलो आगे चलते हैं. Now let's do study in detail that gametophytic phase. So gametophytic phase which forms gametes, right? Okay, that gametes, they are formed within sex organ. Sex organ, we know that for male it is antheridium, and when we talk about female, that is archegoniums. In antheridium, that biflagellated anthrozoids are formed, while in archegonium a single egg cell is formed. So this is antheridium, and which release biflagellated anthrozoid. एंथर से याद रखो मेल, एंथ्रीडियम, ठीक है. एंथर मेल, एंथ्रीडियम. ओके. Now this anthrozoids, it moves with the help of water. So most important, as this plant live on terrestrial, on soil, as they are terrestrial, but for fertilization water is needed. So this anthrozoids, they move with the help of water and enters to archegonium. Archegonium, this is flask which is of flask shape, right? So when fertilization occurs, zygote is formed, right? So this is most important male sex organ which is known as a antheridium, female sex organ which is known as a archegonium, which is of flask shape. Anthrozoids, they are biflagellated. Antheridium produce so many anthrozoids, but when we talk about that archegonium, which is flask shape, which produce only one egg cell. Okay, the anthrozoids are released into water and they produce, and they reach to the single egg cell, right? That means they comes into contact with archegonium, and when the anthrozoid fuse with the egg, they form zygote. As the zygote do not undergo reductional division ultimately. क्यों? क्योंकि यहाँ पे फिक्स नहीं है कि भाई उसका जर्मिनेशन होगा ही, इसीलिए तुरंत ये जो जाइगोट है तुरंत मियोसिस नहीं होता है, राइट. सो जाइगोट डू नॉट अंडरगो रिडक्शनल डिवीजन, but it produces a multicellular body known as a sporophyte. And second thing, this sporophyte is not free living, but this sporophyte is depend or it is attached to the photosynthetic gametophyte. So we can say that sporophyte, which is parasite on gametophyte, because as I have discussed earlier, gametophyte, they are leafy form, so they are photosynthetic, right. So gametophytic phase, उसपे कौन depend है? Sporophyte. So sporophyte attached to the photosynthetic gametophyte and derives nourishment from it, right. So this is most important, and we can clearly understand that gametophytic phase, which is main and photosynthetic, and sporophytes depends on gametophyte, because that sporophyte absorbs nutrition from gametophyte. But this happens only in bryophytes, as they are primitive plants. Okay, so this is most important to remember. Only in bryophytes that gametophytic phase is main and sporophytes depends on gametophyte. And gametophytic phase is leafy. Now some cells of the sporophyte undergo reductional division. कुछ cells reduction division होता है to produce haploid spores, and these spores germinate to produce gametophyte. फिर यही spores germinate होते हैं and क्या बनाते हैं? Again that gametophyte. And again cycle continue रहेगी, right. So this is most important. Remember that male sex organ antheridium, female sex organ archegonium. For fertilization, water is needed. After fertilization, zygote develops into sporophyte, which is diploid and which is parasite on gametophyte. So again, gametophytic is photosynthetic, independent, but sporophyte which depends on gametophyte. So here that gametophyte is main phase, sporophyte is subsidiary. Okay, and sporophyte absorbs nutrition, minerals from gametophyte. So this is about reproduction, antheridium, archegonium, anthrozoid, egg cells, right? About bryophyte.
It is common to see a green cover growing over rocks, bricks and walls after heavy showers. This green cover is nothing but moss, which is a type of bryophyte. Bryophytes are plants that usually grow in damp, humid and shaded localities. They are also called amphibians of the plant kingdom because though bryophytes grow in soil, they need a moist habitat for sexual reproduction. Let's now take a look at the different parts of a bryophyte. The plant body is thallus-like and is either prostrate or erect. It is attached to the substratum by unicellular or multicellular rhizoids. The plant body does not have true roots, stem or leaves, but possesses similar structures. The main plant body of a bryophyte is haploid. It is also called a gametophyte as it produces gametes. The plant body has both male and female gametophytes, which bear the male and female sex organs respectively. The male sex organs are called the antheridia, and they produce biflagellate antherozoids. The female sex organs, called the archegonia, are flask-shaped and each produces a single egg. During fertilization, the antheridium releases antherozoids in water where they come into contact with the mouth of the archegonium. One antherozoid fuses with the egg to form a zygote. The zygote in turn produces a multicellular body called the sporophyte. The sporophyte gets its nutrition from the gametophyte. Some cells of the sporophyte undergo meiosis to produce haploid spores. These spores germinate to produce a gametophyte. Bryophytes are of two types: liverworts and mosses. You can find liverworts in moist and shady environs such as barks of trees. The plant body, a thallus, is dorsiventral and oppressed to the substrate. However, in the case of leafy liverworts, the plant body bears tiny leaf-like appendages in two rows on the stem-like structures. Liverworts reproduce both asexually and sexually. In the case of asexual reproduction, we observe fragmentation of the thallus. Asexual reproduction also occurs when gemmi are formed. They are green, multicellular, asexual buds that separate from the parent and develop into new individuals. They develop in small receptacles called gemma cups located on the thallus. In the case of sexual reproduction, the male and female sex organs are produced either on the same or on different thallus. Mosses are another type of bryophytes. Funaria, Polytrichum, and Sphagnum are some common species of moss. A moss undergoes several stages in life, wherein the gametophyte stage is the most predominant one. The gametophyte stage has two substages, Protonema and Leafy Stage. In the Protonema stage, the spore develops into a protonema, a thread-like chain of cells. The protonema is creeping, green, branched, and filamentous. The second stage is the leafy stage, where the primary protonema develops into the secondary protonema as a lateral bud. The buds consist of upright, slender axes that bear spirally arranged leaves attached to the soil through branched rhizoids. The sexual organs develop during the leafy stage. Mosses reproduce vegetatively and sexually. Vegetative reproduction is by fragmentation and budding in the secondary protonema. In sexual reproduction, the male and female sex organs are produced at the apex of the leafy shoots. Let's now look at the uses and importance of bryophytes. Moss such as sphagnum provides peat, which is used as fuel. Moss also form a dense mat, thereby allowing rainwater to percolate into the ground. This prevents rainwater from running off and the subsequent soil erosion. Bryophytes such as moss are also ecologically important as, along with lichens, they are always the first to colonize rocks. Moreover, they decompose the rocks and make the area suitable for the growth of higher plants. Thus, we have seen that bryophytes have several uses.